The first thing you need to know, of course, is how you access those boxes, pretty much like for our controllers. I don't know if you have a 5760, so in case you do not, let's look at a picture. It also has, of course, a console cable and a console plug that you see here. So that's pretty much like the AeroS structure, except that as you can see here, it's directly a mini USB setup. It's not RJ45. The RJ45 is at the back. Then you have these 6 interfaces here. You see 2 here, then 2 there, and 2 there. So what these are, they are 10 gig ports where you can connect to your network. So that's the management interface. You don't need to plug a 10 gig connection here. You can put a 1 gig if you have it, but you can go all the way to 10 gig and you have 6 of them. So that gives you an up to 60 gigabit throughput on that box. All right, so that's the front. At the back, you have the other console. And that console is the one you're used to, the RJ45. So if you want to console to this controller from the RJ45, you have to connect to the back. Be careful because below this one, you have what we call the management port, and this is also an RJ45, so don't get it wrong. If you connect here, there is no console. What this is, it's pretty much like the service interface port, where you can remotely control the controller, but where there is no direct data connection for clients. So that's the same concept. The main difference is that this one can be routed, where the AeroS is typically not routed, but that's pretty much a small difference in our case at CCNA level. Be careful, depending on the model you get, you may have the label clear or not, so remember, the console is at the back. Then a big difference between the AeroS and the iOS XE is that the iOS XE can be stacked. Yes, stacked. That means you have a 5760 and you can put 2 of them together and use a stack cable to connect one to the other. If you go to CCNP, you'll see that we can use that for advanced features like high availability, where we split the ports in the front between 2 physical boxes and 1 virtual controller. So that's very powerful. So that's the 5760. If you look at a switch, and for example, we take a 3850 as an example, the logic is pretty much the same in that the console port is in the front and the port you have in the front is the USB. Then you have, of course, it's a switch, so all the network interface that you have here. And there is one special side, which is here, where you have an uplink or additional module that you can add. Depending on which model you get, you have nothing here, just a flat surface cover. Or you can have a 1 gig series of ports or a 10 gig series of ports. Now, please notice that on the front of the 3850, there is also this port here, which is a USB plug that allows you to connect a USB thumb drive to your switch, and that is very useful if you need to save the configuration locally. You have the same type of port on the 5760. The big difference is that on the 5760 you can use this port to also push configuration or push code to the 5760. Whereas on the 3850, 3650, you can only use this to save your configuration. You cannot use that port to dynamically upgrade the code on your controller. Alright, so that's the front of the 36 or 3850. The back, same logic. We have on the left side this section where we have the console port at the top and you have the management port at the bottom, and then you have the label that you can see here. And of course, because there are switches, there is a location where you can put some stacks as well, stack modules. One difference between the 3850 and the 3650 is that the 3850 has the ports already, and you can just have the module there and you can connect your stacks. Whereas the 3650 is not coming by default with a stack module, so you have to order the stack ports and the stack cables if you need to stack 3650s. But once you have those, you can stack up to 9 switches, 9 3850s or 9 3650s. You cannot mix and match, right? It has to be either or, but you can stack 9 of those.